that information. That's it. Now let me make use of my service. Now let me make use of my service, and let my service go make use of HTTP client service, and let my client service write it in the JSON server. Okay. So from here, let me remove this. Not required anymore. I'll uncomment this. Save data method I will pass, and I'll send this data. So what is that data having? N1 value, N2 value it is having. Okay. So rather giving N1 and N2, let me give the name as equal to your JSON file. Your JSON file is having title and content. So that storing will be very simple. I'll give title and content. Okay. So from here, I'm calling that service sr service.save data, and I'm passing that data. So service method is called, and this data is called. And here post method is sending a request, and the post is returning me an observable. Now is it done? Is this storing inside the JSON server is done? Data.json file is getting updated here. Can we check it once if needed? Okay. I'll give B, and I'll submit. When I click on submit,
it's reloading. Website is reloading.
Website is reloading, but is that JSON server is getting added?
No, ma'am.
Okay, let me, if needed, let me write console statements here. Log ins, entering service, and I'll write exiting service also. When I enter simply some content I'm entering and submit, it is entering my service. Where is exiting service? Why this exiting service is unreachable?
After return statement, nothing will execute.
Okay, fine. If it is not accessible here, let me write it here. I'll write completed service. Now again I'll enter submit. It is saying completed service. Means what? From my TS booking component.ts, it is calling my service. Service is executed. This post request is sent. It is coming back to the calling environment, and then this line is executed. Okay, let me check my JSON file. Is that information is added? Why it is not adding? Can someone guess?
Ma'am, should we like subscribe since it's returning an observer?
Right. Who's that? Who answered?
Nikhil.
Okay, Nikhil. Super. As it is returning a observable, we need to subscribe it. Until and unless we subscribe, that observable part is not executed. So as this service is returning an observable to us, it is not returning any updated JSON file. It is not returning me any updated content. It is sending a request, and that request observable is returned to me. Now I have to subscribe to that. Only then my service will be executed and my updation will be done. So how will I subscribe to it? What I have to do here, either I can proceed here itself or I can do it separately also. Whatever this is returning, I'll store it in a variable OBS. What is it? Okay, I'll put it outside. Of observable type. It is of observable type. Not required. I can directly write it. Let's see.
Declaration is needed, ma'am. 17. Is equal to new observable.
No. It is. I'm not creating a new observable object. I'm just declaring a variable. Okay, I'll make it as any type. Then it is not a problem. Fine. So whatever it is returning, I'm storing it in that observable, and that observable dot subscribe. Okay, that is not declared as an observable, so it is not.
Ma'am, we need to install RxJS, I think.
So
But
data got persisted and you want to do the task using observable.
No.
Keyword.
For
Open new
storing, no. For storing, I'm saying, wait. Here directly I could able to subscribe. Okay, I'm just chaining. I'm not doing it separately. I thought I can, do it, store it in a variable. If I'm storing it in a variable, again, it's just asking me to create a new object. Rather storing it in variable, I'm directly subscribing because save data is returning me an observable. Save data is there in my service. Service is making a HTTP request of post. This is returning me an observable. Same observable is returned back to my TS file, and that observable I'm subscribing. So when I subscribe, obviously it is going to execute a next or error or complete. So let me get some as of now I'm printing it in log message. Log the result. I'm coming here. Same AA content VB. When I click on submit, okay, server is not running. Let's make sure the server is watching. Server is watching. Maybe I will restart once. Watching. Why it is not connecting to the server?
Let's check the flow once.
Let's check the URL once.
Ma'am, it is not focusing on the file, exact file.
It was still 3000. It was not till info. Okay, let's see now. Submit now. Yes. So now let's see the JSON file. I'm refreshing. It is added. Title and content is added. So whatever we are adding, it is getting updated in the JSON file. So one JSON file is accessed. So I'm repeating the flow once again. I have one JSON file. In my JSON file, I have few information, few set of objects I'm having. I want to retrieve this JSON file. So JSON server has to be, I want to connect to my JSON server and retrieve it. So that is not the job of my component. My component has to work only for my template. Connecting to the JSON server is not the job of my component. So I'm creating a service to connect to my JSON file. So my service, what service is doing? It is connecting. It is sending a request, posting a request to this URL with this data. So what is this URL? It is the URL of my JSON server. And it is posting a request with the help of HC. What is HC? HC is a property. It's a service of HTTP client. HTTP client is a predefined service, and that service object I have created as a property using injection, dependency injection method. I have created a service of HTTP client. Using dependency injection, I have created an object of HTTP client service. And that HC is used to send a request to this URL, and I'm passing some data. So whatever data this save data method is getting, that information is stored in the file. So I'm storing that file, but I'm not directly accessing the file and storing. Whoever I am creating a connection. Whoever needs, let them subscribe and store the information. Whichever component is needed. If there are 3, 4, 5 component. So from in Amazon or in any other websites also, you will notice that from any page you can give add to cart. Add to cart is what? Adding your information into any local array or local file. So your information is added somewhere.
So only 1 minute. Just to recollect. So few days back, shall I? I'll take only 2 minutes.
Yes. Go ahead.
Since I was with them, so I thought let me have a quick recap. So hardly some 10 days back, we have persist the data in JSON server, in a JSON file. So we have used the same functionality in JavaScript and we persist the data in our db.json file. So in order to connect my client-side JavaScript, in order to connect my server, my JSON server, to connect with the service, DB service, storing the data permanently in JSON. What concept we used in JavaScript? Am I making it sense? So in order to connect or in order to do data storage from JavaScript to mydb.json file, in JavaScript, what functionality we used?
Post method.
Okay, we used post method, get method, delete method. Those are all HTTP methods. But I am asking about the functionality. Which concept we used to connect JavaScript with JSON server. Recollect and tell me.
Ma'am,
Hmm? No, I need answer from you. Let it be. I'll wait for as many number of times. In JavaScript, so which concept, which class is responsible for communicating with the server? Here it is JSON server.
ma'am, XML HTTP request.
Correct. Can you recollect what is the concept we used? XHR object. All of you. Guys, are you there? Are you with
Yes, ma'am.
us?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
We are in front-end technology, HTML, CSS. We used and we can construct an application. On top of my application, if I want to achieve certain dynamic feature, fetching the data, persist the data, store the data, and retrieve the data from business logic server. So in order to do those functionality, we will use a dynamic languages. We started with JavaScript. In JavaScript, we used XML HTTP request. You remember this object, which is used to interact with the server.
Yes,
And
ma'am.
always, whenever if you are going for HTTP, we have an HTTP methods. So we have post method to store. In order to test whether it got stored or not, we used Postman tool. Likewise, and server remains same. Both in JavaScript and today's topic, we are going to use JSON server only. What is required to have JSON in my machine? What command we need to have JSON in our application or in our machine?
npm install --g JSON server.
So we want to install our JSON server. What is the syntax? npm install JSON -server. I have installed server. How to start the server and how to track the this watching functionality can be enabled with the help of. So how to watch? Here.
JSON server --watch.
So JSON server to start the server and to watch. So --watch followed with your
Port number.
file name.
JSON name.
And followed with
File
your
name.
port. If you want to change, by default it is in 3000. If you want to change port number, you can give --port and you can do. So last week you go through again. I'll share my notes. XHR XML HTTP request. You remember open method, send method. On top of it, we used HTTP methods. And just to test, we used Postman application, just a tool. So likewise today in Angular, if I want to communicate with server, in order to connect with any backend service. In Angular, we will use HTTP. Again, we will use HTTP protocol. So here we will use a class HTTP client module. So step number 1, you want to import HTTP client module. So it belongs to Angular common HTTP. Once if you import the module, so this is what the difference between.
And you
here
will
we
also
are-
recollect what is Axios.
And since we are in Angular, so yesterday only I introduced observable in order to whether XHR is synchronous or asynchronous. Even in order to get the word XHR, I have to do all
Struggle.
those things. XHR is asynchronous. Likewise, how to achieve asynchronous functionality in Angular?
Without giving anything.
Axios.
How to achieve asynchronous functionality in Angular?
Subscribe observer.
Promise.
So using the concept of observable. So in order to do this data persistent part in asynchronous functionality, you can handle as an observable object. That is what it's there in front of you in 18th line. Oh, no, it's not in 18th line. So observable object we will create, and in the observable we will provide the service
Here
and you will
post will
subscribe
return
this.
you the observable.
Yeah.
And
Will
you are
return, and
subscribing
here
it
we
here.
are subscribe method belongs to observable. This will do asynchronous. That is why in a browser, so it is not waiting to go back to server and it is coming back. So whenever the data gets stored, we can be able to view in console or wherever. It can be binded in HTML also. We can get asynchronous response. So before moving the next topic, let them practice with simple service.
I'll complete this because
We will complete this alone. No need to do get. Only post is fine for today. So let us store the data alone. Get part and all we can continue. Step 1, let them do a simple demo.
No,
and
I'll
then-
complete get also, so that some part is properly done. We will stop before logger.
Because
Get
it's
is not
already no problem. We can
Get
continue
is not going
tomorrow.
to
Take much time, but it's been long time. I thought let them practice. On
I'll
simple-
complete get alone and then I'll give them time. Okay, so still now again I'm repeating my flow. From app component I'm repeating app component.html. I'm jumping to booking component.html. Booking component.html is displaying me this form. Once when I enter all the information in the form, all the informations are referred with the help of a variable, form control variable F1, and F1 is a ng form, so that this form is referred with the help of F1. This entire form, ng form, is referred with the help of F1. On submitting, ng submit is calling the save method, and F1 dot value refers to the value in this text box. On submitting, I'm calling save method and passing those values. Save method is called and those values are passed. So what I'm doing here, I'm calling a service. Service is already injected in my constructor, and my service is SR service. SR service dot save data method is called, and what it is taking there, whatever data I'm having. What data I'm having here? F1 dot value. Whatever I'm entering in the text box, I'm having it inside the data, and the same information I'm passing it to my service method to save data. Service save data method is getting that information and it is sending a request. This dot HC. HC is my HTTP client service object which has been injected. So that object is sending a request. Post request is sent to this URL, and the information, whatever data we have entered, that data is passed. So it's creating a connection to your server, and an observable is returned to us. But it is not yet persisting. It is not yet storing your information. When the information will be stored, when the information will be posted in your JSON server, only when we subscribe it. As of now, observable is returned, and the same whatever post method is giving to me, I am giving it to my calling environment. My calling environment is this. Here I am getting that. This is returning me. This is calling a method in service. Service is calling a method called post. Post is returning observable, and the same method is returning observable here. That observable is subscribed, and it is storing information in your JSON server. Still now, is it clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Should I repeat anything? Abdul, Anuj, Harshad, Joel, is it
No, ma'am.
clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So what I'll do, either I can display it here itself, or else I can display it in the different component also. As of now, I feel that I will not confuse you. So I'll display it here itself. Should I display it here or display it in the different component? What do you feel? Should I display it here, whatever in the JSON server? Can I fetch and display here itself, or can I do it in the different component?
Here, ma'am.
Okay. So I'll create one table to display all the informations, and first table row is going to have my table header as title. And the second table header is content. And my next TR should display the value. In my next rows, I have to display my value. So first, I need to fetch the values. So how will I fetch the values now? Let me write one method here. Okay, here below only I'll write. Services completed is it here. So this method is ending here. Below I'll write one method to retrieve data. What retrieve data is going to do? It is going to make a HTTP client and read the data from the server. So let me send it to my service. Inside service, I'll do all the job. Service dot. I'll create a method called get data. As of now, I'm terminating. I'll subscribe it later. So here in my service, I'll have that get data method because I have called it from here. So I'm get data is my method name. It is going to be inside my service. Get data method is here. What it is going to do? It is just going to do this dot HTTP client dot get the information from this URL. That's it. This dot JSON URL. So what it is returning? Get is also returning me the observable. So simply I will also return it. I will also return that observable from here. So whatever this get data is retrieving, I will subscribe it. So this get data method from my service is retrieving some information. So let me subscribe that information. So whatever it is subscribing, I'm creating a callback function, just some D I'm giving. Okay, I need to access them in my HTML page. So I'll store it in my global variable, details of any type. And let me store that D here. So if you feel like what it means, let's display it once here. Console.log. Details. Oh, sorry, I can return D also. Anything I can display. Everything is same only anyhow. So when to call this retrieve data? When to call this retrieve data? On the on init I will call. On the on init I'm calling retrieve data. So each and every time when the page is loaded, it is going to call me by table. So as of now, I didn't display anything in the table. Okay, fine. Let me display it here. When I add anything and submit. So see how it is returning. Okay. Here itself you can see how it is returning. How it is returning. It is returning me what? What is the return type of that?
Array of objects.
Array of objects. It is returning me array of objects. So inside one first object, I'm having title content ID. Second object is also having title content ID. Third object is also having title content ID. Okay. So now I want to display it in my HTML page. So how can I display it here in my HTML page? Inside my second tr,
ng4.
I'll use ng4. ng4 let simply l of details is my array name, right? Whatever it is returning, that I'm storing it inside details. So this I will fetch and display inside td. td will display through interpolation l dot title, l dot title, l dot content, because it is having those properties. Table, I'll give border to my table, some 2 pixels. So initially my JSON server, as I have stored 2 times, my JSON server is having 4 values. So whatever is there, on init method is calling and displaying. Okay. Let me give SQL now. And let me give my SQL now. And submit. Is it not adding? My table is not getting. Let me check my JSON file. It is adding, but why it is not reflecting here?
Ma'am, I think in NG4 you have to use the
No, here in my save data, after each and every save, can I separately call my retrieve method once again? I'll separately call my retrieve method once again and check. HTML.
It's added, ma'am. SQL and MySQL.
That is added, but as soon as I click on submit, it should add, right?
Yeah.
W3 schools, submit, it's getting added. So what we are doing here, we are doing saving to JSON file and retrieving, storing in JSON file and reading from JSON file we are doing. So all connecting to the JSON file, connecting to the database is not done by my component, it is done by my service. Service, what service is doing? It is making a HTTP client request, either to post the data or to retrieve the data. It is making a code, it is helping me to connect to my server, JSON server, with the help of HTTP client. HTTP client is a service which we are injecting here as HC. So with the help of that, I'm posting my request and as well getting my request. So where I'm calling this, in my component.ts, when you click on submit button, save method is called and that save data is called. Save data is posting the request and returning a observable. So I'm subscribing it here and just printing data stored successfully. Each and every data, after it is stored, it has to be displayed in the table. So I'm calling this retrieve data method from here once again. This retrieve data is again connecting to your service get data. Get data is connecting to your, making a HTTP client request to your JSON server. It is retrieving an observable and sending it to you. So it is retrieving an array of objects to you. Entire JSON file is retrieved and sent. So what we are doing here, we are subscribing and storing it inside details. So that details is iterated in HTML page and it is printed. Is it clear? Is it clear? Should I repeat something?
Can you repeat this retrieve part?
Which part?
I'm retrieving.
So retrieving part.
Yes, ma'am.
See, as soon as each and every time my component is loaded, ng on in it, I'm calling this retrieve data method. Each and every time when the component is loaded. So what this retrieve data is doing, retrieve data is giving this dot SR service is my injector of my service. Store and retrieve service, SR service is my property. This dot SR service dot get data method you are calling. So from your service, get data method is called. Get data method is making a HTTP client request. Get request to this URL. So it is trying to fetch the information from this URL. So a connection between the URL is created and an observable is returned to you. And that observable, you are subscribing it here. Whatever it is returning, whatever get method is returning, I am returning back to my calling environment. My calling environment is this. Here only I have called get data. So that is returned back here. So whatever observable is written, I'm subscribing them and I have stored it inside details. Why I am storing it inside a global variable? Because I want to access them in the HTML page for interpolation. So I want this to be accessed in HTML page. So I am doing this step. And I have printed it here for our understanding to know that it is printing an array of objects. So from that array, how do I populate and display? Using ng for vpopulate and display. Is it clear?
Ma'am, can you go to component.ts?
component.ts.
Ma'am, the retrieve data method is called because of line number 15 or 28, 25.
15 and yes.
25.
Hmm.
Because
Why
of
we are
which
doing
line-
it so? Because if I'm not giving it here, as soon as the page is loaded from the server, it is retrieving and showing me. But once I'm adding new data, it should immediately reflect in my table, right? See, I'm commenting this as of now. I'm adding Ayush in content also and submit. See, it is not displayed here, but it is there in my JSON file. It will be there in my JSON file. See? But why it is not displayed here in my output, in my table? Because this retrieve method is called when the page is loaded, when the component is loaded. When I reload it, it will show. I don't want this reloading again and again. So as soon as when I click on that button, save data should save the data and retrieval should happen once again.
Ma'am, can
As
you
soon as
comment line
new
number
data
15
is,
and
new
show?
record is inserted, retrieval should be refreshed. So I'm calling this once again. Now when I give something else, okay, I have clicked twice. It is added.
Ma'am,
That's why I have called it here. Yes, Ayush.
can you comment line number 15 and then show?
Command it. On the page load, nothing is there. Only when I click on submit button, it will come.
Okay, ma'am, okay.
Okay, so will you practice this? Then we will see the slides, or I'll just show you what all we have covered in slides. What is your opinion? I want your opinion.
And practice.
Okay. Anyhow, the session is also invalid. Fine. So you practice. We'll see the pending later. If needed, should I send the entire project or you will take the screenshot?
And send project.
Only app holder, ma'am.
All right. Okay. Okay, I'm stopping. First, create one simple variable, create a service.